This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
To the highway in a brand new day. Over the rainbow, gotta let it go. So fast to freedom. Stars tonight together. Here everyone is singing. 你看到我就怕，头皮发麻，我的手。
Welcome back to Open the Voice Gate for June 23rd, 2020. We are members of the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network. You can find Open the Voice Gate on the Voices of Wrestling RSS feed or on our own dedicated RSS feed on all podcast platforms and applications. You can find us on Twitter at Open Voice Gate. I'm one of your hosts, Iron Mike. It is your old pal, Iron Mike Spears, and I'm joined as always by Case Lowe. And Case, how's it going?
Well, I'm doing all right. All things considered, the family is still healthy. I still have a roof over my head. It is just an unfortunate week that, unfortunately for a lot of people, has only been the next step in a long process of pain and trauma, and I think that is just awful.
Yeah, this is a step. Hopefully, this could get all the victims the restorative justice and whatever they need, and hopefully all the accusers will be dealt with as well as possible. Just off the top of the show, as this is a Dragon Gate podcast, we'd be remiss there's not as much crossover as this is a Dragon Gate, but we'd be remiss if we didn't say that, of course, we stand with all the victims. We believe victims on this show, and we could only hope that better days are ahead and that the issues that the underlying societal and environmental issues within pro wrestling can be rooted out, that the victims can get whatever form of justice that they believe is appropriate, and that all the allegations are dealt with to the fairest thing to the victims.
Well said, Mike. The good news in terms of the Dragon Gate universe, I guess if you are looking for good news in wrestling, is that we are now very close to having fans back in the stands in a limited capacity. We have a bunch of exciting looking matches on paper that we'll talk about today, and we had an exciting weekend of professional wrestling matches that took place once again in the empty arena, but inside the Dragon Gate ring over this past weekend. A bright spot in what has been a bleak 6 or 7 days now.
Yeah, there's been two batches of shows with two matches each over last weekend on June 20th and 21st. I'm just going to run down the results first, Case, then we can get into the matches themselves, if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
All right, so on June 20th, they released a match that was Dragon Gate versus RED. Big Arshimizu defeating Dragon Dia in 5 minutes and 6 seconds with the shot put slam. A Toriumon versus RED match where Ada and Diamante defeated Naruki Doi and Dragon Kid in 9 minutes and 35 seconds when Diamante pinned Dragon Kid with the Vuelta finale. And then on the 21st, on Sunday, we had two matches. The first ones were it kind of is a Dragon Gate Army thing, even though that Kento Kabune has not officially announced as a member of it, but he is a part of this next generation as he teamed with Benkei to go against the RED team of Takashi Yoshida and Hyo, where Hyo got a rare win on the rookie Kento Kabune in just under 12 minutes with a front cradle after a low blow. And then in the big match, the capper of the weekend, Kaito Ishida had his third successful defense of the Open the Brave Gate Championship as he's defeated his year-long adversary, Dragon Gate Army's member Keisuke Okuda. Ishida won in 14 minutes 53 seconds with it was just a roll-up after a whole bunch of RED interference. In case this unlike past shows where I felt like they were doing matches, my overall take on this weekend was that it does feel like that they've used at least this most recent weekend of tapings at Kobe Lapis Hall to build forward to when they start having shows in front of fans, in my opinion.
Well, if you remember, we talked about when Dragon Gate did their first empty arena show back in kind of mid to late March. That show was fun. There was a life to that show and a sort of curiosity of like, oh, what are they going to do? How are they going to adapt to this situation? That, originally Dragon Gate came out as the front runners of empty arena wrestling. They were like, they have this figured out. And then as time has gone on with the ups and downs of King of Gate, I think they got lost in the shuffle a little bit, while as, a company like AEW has been rather consistent in their empty arena presentation. But now the end of the tunnel is in sight. We know that things are going to be happening in a semi-normalized capacity in the very near future. So having matches on this show, they felt, you're exactly right, Mike, they felt much less random than they had for maybe the past 2 or 3 weeks. Like, these matches had purpose. And more importantly, now that there's light at the end of the tunnel, there's a little bit more life to this entire setup. I know that it's just not an endless string of tag matches in an empty arena. I know we're building towards stuff now. And although the shows with fans will not be, in air quotes, normal, it is a step towards normalcy that I am ready for, that I am excited for. And I want to start with the final match of the weekend, the Open the Brave Gate Championship match, which, Mike, made me excited once again, as we've talked about on all of these empty arena shows. Despite some bad matches, some things that maybe didn't land as high, I think the takeaway, at least for me, through these shows has been, man, I am excited about the future of this company. And Kaito Ishida versus Keisuke Okuda, I tweeted about it when the match dropped. It is the one match since Dragon Gate went to this empty arena format where they've been uploading matches on the weekends that I watched as soon as it was uploaded. King of Gate stuff, I watched the next morning. The other tag matches, I could wait for an afternoon or an evening and sit down and watch those. Ishida versus Okuda, I sat down and watched that as close to live as I possibly could, and I came away delighted at the output of this Open the Brave Gate Championship match. But Mike, we have not talked about that match together, so I need to know what you thought of Kaito Ishida's third successful defense of the Open the Brave Gate title.
Kaito Ishida's the guy. Kaito Ishida is someone who, over the last 18 months, has gone from being someone that showed promise, someone that was hamstrung with serious injuries, and someone that you could see glimpses of greatness in, but you were not certain that Kaito Ishida was going to be that guy. We are starting to see now that he is, and especially for someone who's only, I believe, 25 years of age, you can project him out. And that's something that, I'm a big fan of, is projecting people out. What's their ceiling? What's their floor? Where do you see this person next year, 5 years, and 10 years? And this kind of matchup is exactly what people should have been doing all along. This company should have been doing all along in the empty arena context. They made sure to have enough people at ringside being seconds. I mean, if we're going to be honest, did they need to for safety's sake? No, not at all, but it added to the ambiance. We had a finish that, I remember us talking last week that I thought this could have gone to a no contest and the feud could continue. This was not a definitive loss against Keisuke Okuda. Keisuke Okuda probably can rationalize his way into another title shot along the same lines of the Kagetora versus the Takahiro Yamamura feud from a couple of years ago. I thought that from the opening bell of this match, where we had the Flash knockout tease. When have you seen a Flash knockout tease in recent time in wrestling, Case?
I don't know the last time I saw it, which is ultimately the issue, because this is a spot that should be utilized more often. It is exciting. It grabbed my attention immediately. And just given the way Dragon Gate just every once in a while just throws everybody for a loop, I bought into the idea that Okuda could have beaten them in if not 7 seconds, then in 90 seconds. And then Ishida battled back, and we had a near 15-minute matchup that I thought was entertaining for the entire time. But you're right on the money. The match started on such a high note, and then I thought it continued from there.
Yeah, one of the big things I know bothered me, Case. I'm not positive for you, but I thought that at least in Lapis Hall, the crowd brawling has been very perfunctory, and they did crowd brawling because that's something that happens when you're going against the heel unit. This crowd brawling made sense. A lot of effective leg work was started there and continued when they get back in the ring, and it just like Keisuke Asuka did not go down like a punk. It basically took everyone in RED doing big moves to him and a powder throw for him to go out. For like a 15-minute match, this was an all-action, not very much down period, and a focused time where Ishida worked the knee. It played into the remainder of the match. Like, of course, he shook it out a little bit as he went along, but it just was tremendous stuff. I went 4 flat on it, and it's easily the highlight of the empty arena era in Dragon Gate.
I went 4 flat as well. I am so glad that you liked this match as much as I did, because I came away from it, 1, in agreement, Kaito Ishida is the guy. I think 2, Keisuke Okuda, I mean, he's been in the company for a year now, a little bit more, but when you factor in the empty arena setting, he's essentially spent a calendar year in the company now. Has been such a delightful addition that, you know, I remember we were really excited when he came in on a semi-permanent basis because it was just something so different and we didn't really know what to expect. And the fact that he has delivered to such a high degree, but at least in my opinion, has not lost his originality and what makes him different from the roster is, 1, I think something that the rest of wrestling should take note of. And 2, it's just been awesome to see him succeed. And Okuda selling in this match, the way he sold that knee, oh my God, I thought it was great. Like, I am so happy with this match. I will say now, I think all 4 matches that were uploaded this past weekend are worth watching. This one, I went 4 stars on as well. I think it is, since they moved to Lapis Hall for their empty arena shows, it is the best match they've had. I still think the main event of their first empty arena show, the KZ Dragon Dia Maria versus Shimizu Eita Ishida 6-man, I think that was that is the best empty arena match there has been. Granted, I have not watched the New Japan Cup stuff yet, but to me that match was above 4 stars. I went 4.25 on that. But yeah, I love this, and I think if you look at the card that will be released on June 27th, we've got a tag match, and it's Keisuke Okuda and Jason Lee versus Kaito Ishida and Yo. Well, Ishida beat Jason Lee and defended the final, or the Brave Gate belt at Final Gate. There would be no reason for Jason Lee to get another shot at the title. So despite the messy finish here, I think it is really just a chapter in this story that is being told of Ishida versus Okuda, and I think we are getting another singles match down the line.
And I can't wait for it, because it's just, there were, like, the one downside of this match was you could tell this was not the match. You could tell that this was a chapter along the way. And that all being said, incredible chapter along the way. Like you said, like, it definitely built up on stuff. I think if they have the opportunity to, over the next few weeks, especially as they get in front of live crowds, they should get the Flash knockout win over as hard as they can. Because that could be amazing as a possible finish, because no one's doing that. Like, the closest person to anyone doing like a knockout thing was when Brock Lesnar would bum rush someone and just pin you after like 10 suplexes in an F5.
Yes, who could forget the illustrious run of Suplex City? But yes, no, you're totally right. And there's an opportunity in the eventual, what I will refer to as the eventual rematch, because I really do think it's coming. But there's now a chance for Okuda to bum rush Ishida again, and Ishida can counter it this time. He can be ready for it, and they can subvert that Flash knockout scenario, which now, you know, I'm agenting matches in my head, which I shouldn't, but I just love that idea on paper, because there is so much talent and so much chemistry between these two guys. I don't know if Okuda ends his reign. If you take a look at the roster, with the exception of Dragon Dia, who this week I remember that he's 1/3 of the Triangle Gate champions, but no one immediately jumps out to me as a guy that could end Ishida's reign, with the exception of Okuda. But Mike, and I don't know if you know something different than what I know. I don't know Okuda's contractual status with the company. I don't know if he's technically a freelance guy that just, only works Dragon Gate. I don't know if he's locked up on a permanent basis. So there might be some hesitation there to give him a title just for pure ethical reasons. But, if it's not Okuda, I don't know who it is. And for as much as I want to see Ishida move up the card, I also want to see what's left in the tank for this Bravegate run. This is the most exciting part of the company to me right now, is this Bravegate scene and the 5 degrees of Ishida and everything that revolves around him. And again, it's not necessarily a fault of Eita that Kaito Ishida is as exciting as he is. But when you look at what will likely be the main event of Kobe World, and it's Naruki Doi versus Eita, in all seriousness, if that is positioned on the card as an Ishida versus Okuda rematch, the match I'm most looking forward to is Ishida versus Okuda. And that's not because Naruki Doi is in the main event. And I don't know how to deal with that as a viewer, that I'm so much more sucked in by this mid-card title run by a guy who is only 24 years old, turns 25 in December, and Kaito Ishida. But for me, he has been the MVP of the empty arena wrestling scene as a whole. I think he's delightful. If you have not seen this match with Okuda, you must go watch it.
I did a second of investigation, not as far as I really could have. Keisuke Okuda has had 137 matches within Dragon Gate, and I think one match outside of Dragon Gate, but it was with Ultimo. He is not, to my knowledge, signed under contract, but that could be one of those things where you're freelance, but you're not really freelance.
Well, and he could have signed a contract, and it just maybe wasn't announced for whatever reason.
Sure.
Because, yeah, I mean, did he work? Was it a show in Japan he worked with Ultimo, or was it a show in Mexico that he worked with Ultimo?
I believe it was a show in Mexico.
Yeah, right. He, again, since Dead or Alive last year, he has been full-time in Dragon Gate, and unless he's popping up on some freelance shows, or unless there's something major that I'm forgetting, he has been with Dragon Gate full-time, and like I said, he's been a welcome addition to the roster. So 4 flat on the Bravegate match for me. I loved it, and I can't wait to see what comes next.
Yeah, no, it's going to be real exciting seeing that. The next match, like my next favorite match of this weekend, like you, I thought all 4 of the matches were solid. There were some matches that held my interest a little bit more, but it makes sense why they would hold my interest a little bit more, especially with how I've been feeling about Ishida and Okuda and how I've been feeling about these two guys. The opening match of the weekend was Dragon Dia versus Big R Shimizu, and for a 5-minute sprint case, that was a blast of a 5-minute sprint. These two guys had amazing chemistry. Dia sold his ass off for Shimizu, and this is the kind of win that for Shimizu's overall storyline of not having a good 2020 and other people in RED calling it out, him having a definitive pin on the Triangle Gate champions, I think is an important thing to note and something to kind of see as it goes forward. I really enjoyed this match. I thought this was an absolute blast. What were your thoughts on it?
Mike, what if I told you that I liked this match, the Big R Shimizu Dragon Dia match? I liked the match, but it wasn't my favorite match of the night. Would that surprise you?
I mean, given... Actually, you know what? Yes, I'm going to put my chips out here. Yes, given knowing your opinion of the Eita versus Dragon Kid feud, I'd be surprised if you liked that match more than this one, because I thought this match was that match of the June 20th edition of Rainbow Gate.
Not only my thoughts on the Eita versus Dragon Kid feud, but my thoughts on Diamante as a whole. But Mike, I'm here to tell you, the tag match between Doi and Dragon Kid versus Eita and Diamante was my favorite match on the 20th, specifically for Diamante, who I thought was awesome in that match.
Well, you would hope that Diamante would be a great base for Dragon Kid, wouldn't you?
Yes, God, I mean, if he's going to be used for something, he might as well be used for that. But not only was he a good base for DK, they did some, what I thought was really, like, interesting and engaging mat work between Diamante and Dragon Kid. And I thought Doi and Eita looked good together, but I just came away, maybe it was just the matter of expectations, and I came in with such low expectations for that tag match, but I thought that was like a 3.5-star match. I really, really enjoyed it. And thought it was, one of those matches that if it happens on a Korakuen, okay, that's kind of a bummer. If that happens on the second half of a Kobe Sambo Hall show, we're cooking at that point. Like, that was a really fun match. And given the participants involved, I just would have never thought that.
I guess, like, my thing about this match, and I think that your angle of Diamante exceeding expectations is entirely fair. I watched this match with the idea of, okay, Naruki Doi and Eita, that's what we're building to. What did they do to really build to that? And it did not feel like that it further invested me in that feud. That being said, you're absolutely right. This was on a Kobe Sambo Hall show, first match after intermission. this would be probably my favorite match of that Kobe Samba Hall show, with how Kobe Samba Hall shows usually are.
It did contribute to your mental decay in 2019. I was getting a lot of late night Slack messages from Mike Spears, him pulling his hair out, throwing off his Ebbets Field flannel baseball hat against the wall, going, I can't watch these Sambo Hall shows anymore. But being a completist pervert that he is, he would go through and watch all of those matches for whatever reason.
Well, it turned to a game for me where I count how many bumps Gamma or Masato Yoshino would have. And I'll tell you, there are some matches where I don't have to move to my second hand to count how many punches on Gamma's punch card he had.
I was just looking at, I found some old GIFs of 2017 Dragon Gate shows a few days ago, and I was looking at, I think it's Kobe World of that year, because I don't remember if Yoshino was back for Dead or Alive or not, but I know he was back for World, and there's a GIF I have of Yoshino doing a suicide dive through the ropes, and he does it onto Kagetora, and Kagetora protects Yoshino on this dive in a way that I have never seen anyone protect anything. No precious artifacts, nothing of value has been protected as much as Masato Yoshino's body was on this suicide dive, where Kagetora absorbs the blow and then gently lets Yoshino fall on top of him and then casually brushes Yoshino aside. And it was, it was a testament to oh my God, that's right. Dragon Gate is actually incredibly safe for wrestling standards, and guys know what they're doing there, and they don't need a performance center to do that. But also, you sometimes forget just how frail the body of Masato Yoshino is. So if he doesn't want to bump on a Kobe Sambo Hall show, brother, I do not blame him.
I mean, if I was someone whose bump card is only filled of bad soccer and touch football injuries, I wouldn't take a bump on the Kobe Samba Hall show. So that's entirely fair. But I'm glad that Diamante, I'll say I'm glad Diamante is there, because they need people who are ditch diggers. I know that's one of your favorite phrases, but they need someone also to base.
I do come from the vocabulary school of Joe Lanza. I believe I have adopted ditch diggers, and the fact that the world needs them is one of my catchphrases. Thank you for noticing that, Mike.
But I mean, having him here and having it in a way where you get someone like Dragon Kid, where sadly with the size of the most people in promotion, a lot of the flashy stuff that Dragon Kid would be able to pull off a lot easier in his 20s, he's going to need a little bit of someone there to catch him, and having him there really helps as well. And it's going to be interesting. We've talked about this match mostly. We've not talked at all about Naruki or Ada in any thorough capacity. Am I wrong in thinking they were the people in the sidecar in this match?
You're not wrong. And I hope it doesn't come across as contradictory. I can't think of the right word, but contradictory to my statement about Ashida and Akuda outshining Doi and Eita, because in this match, in the tag match, it's just a completely different story. It's just that Diamante and Dragon Kid had really good chemistry, and they became the focal point of the match. But if you look at the cards going forward, we are going to get a lot of Eita versus Doi in the future, and they have time to heat that matchup. So for whatever reason, I don't look at that as a flaw or a fault of either man. I think that was just the happenstance of this particular match.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And then the only match we really haven't touched on was the Benkei and Kabune versus Yoshida Hyo match. And this was a watchable match. I mean, the nice thing about these matches and how they've really put them up there is they don't really have a lot of dead time in it. But it was something where I was watching this and I'm like, well, Kento Kabune, you have a test in front of you today. You are going to be going up against Takashi Yoshida and Hyo. How are you going to do? And I came away with this going, you know what? He equipped himself pretty well in this match.
It is a little bit different than him debuting against Yamato and KZ. It's oh, wow, this guy's really good. It's oh, well, hold on. Would we have been saying that had this been his debut match? But no, Kabune held his own. I enjoyed him in this match. The more important thing to take away from this, Mike, what is Benkei clocking in at right now when he steps up on the scale?
All right, so last time I have seen a scale update, he was at 115 kilograms, which is 253 pounds.
My God.
And as of the time of recording, probably has gained another 5 kilos since last time that I saw this. He is a massive rock of a man. I did find a great photo of, I think it was actually on Okuda's Instagram. By the way, Okuda, great Instagram to follow, especially if you're someone who really likes streetwear and someone who's just he lives his gimmick, like just like having this all together. I'm like, yeah, he's a hothead who wants to wear some Balenciaga. It rules. But he has this photo of him up on Twitter, on Instagram. I don't know if you caught when I posted this, where he has where he's doing like neck exercise, but the neck exercise is him having a 35 kilogram plate on a chain attached to like some sort of like head contraption that's supposed to be working his neck. So he's not skipping neck day, and he does not look like he skips leg day either.
No, it's the fatal flaw of most humans, not even professional wrestlers, but the amount of times I have caught my friends at the gym skipping neck day. I mean, if I had a nickel for every time that happened, you know, you wouldn't need your Everything Elite Patreon. I would just be paying you out of pocket. But yes, when the show is posted, I will be sure to have that on the Open the Voice Gate Twitter, is that picture of Ben K just working the heck out of his neck. Good for that man. But yeah, he is bigger than ever before, and I hope that it does not lead to a serious injury, but he is huge.
Yeah, Ben K is big now, more so than usual. But this match, like, Ben K was huge. Kabune, you know, he equipped himself well here. Takashi Yoshida, bless his heart, was having issue getting his tape off to do like a wrist tape spot, and I was like, oh dear. Like, it's kind of hard for me. Like, I don't like to infantilize him, but whenever like stuff like that happens for Yoshida, I'm like, oh gosh, bless his heart. And then Hyo was Hyo.
Yeah, no, that's all there is on that match. I think it's the weakest match of the weekend, but also if you're gonna sit down and watch the rest of these matches, you might as well throw it on there because you're getting Kenta Kobune footage, which as of now to me is still labeled must watch. Now, if you look ahead on the calendar, June 27th and June 28th, you have 2 more sets of empty arena broadcasts from Kobe Lapis Hall. And then if you look ahead a week after that, limited capacity in Kyoto KBS Hall, Hopeful Gate 2020. Now, we will break down those cards in full next week, but there is one thing I think just quickly, because it won't take a lot of time, before we break down the matches that are coming up this weekend. There was something that jumped out to a lot of people when the KBS Hall shows were announced. First of all, I think what should jump out at everybody is just how good the July 5th card looks, but we'll talk about that more next week. But Mike, there is an X listed in the main event of the July 4th show and in the semi-main event of the July 5th show. Do you feel comfortable speculating on who X might be, Mike?
I'm okay. I'm comfortable speculating. I if I was able to put a bet on this, I would throw all my money on this.
Yeah, I am not a gambling man, but my friend, I might bet the house on this one.
Yeah, so the 2 matches we're referring to are the main event of July 4th. That would be Speed Muscle, Masato Yoshino, Naruki Doi, and X going up against Eita, Takashi Yoshida, and Hyo. And then on the 5th, special tag team match. It's not listed as anything else, just special tag team match of Dragon Kid and X versus Ben K and Jason Lee. And I'm just not going to even tease it more. I would be positively stunned if it's not Shuji Kondo.
Yes, yeah. If it's not Kondo, it becomes a news story. If it is Kondo, who we were tipped off a while ago that he was going to be in King of Gate this year, that was made public a few weeks ago and confirmed for a larger audience that had there been no pandemic or even just had King of Gate been able to run its normal schedule, that Shuji Kondo would have been in the field. If you look at his cage match, first of all, he worked Dragon Gate earlier this year. He worked both the Toryumon reunion show as a part of the Italian Connection. Then he worked the February Cork and Hall show, which that just got uploaded, or I guess rather re-uploaded in English on the Dragon Gate network. And it does feel like a million years ago. But Yoshino and Shuji Kondo teamed together and defeated BB Hulk and Eita and Kai and Yamato. in a 3-way tag team elimination match, which, reading that out loud, Mike, could you imagine me telling you 3 or 4 years ago that Masato Yoshino and Shuji Kondo would team together and would defeat the team of Kai and Yamato in a Dragon Gate ring? That sounds completely insane now, and it happened a few years ago. It just would have been absolutely insane. But Kondo has not worked since the final Wrestle 1 show. And we've seen the Shotaro Ashino of the worlds and these sort of bigger players in Wrestle 1 pop up elsewhere. Kaz Hayashi has his promotion that is debuting in the fall.
Wrestle 2 or Wrestle 2000, who knows?
I have my own thoughts on Wrestle 2/Wrestle 2000 that can be explained at a later date, but oh my god, I can't believe that promotion's going to exist.
I might put this on the whiteboard that we will address this after Labor Day, because I have my opinions about this as well.
I think, just judging from your tone, I think we have the same opinion on it, but we can talk about that later. But
Ledette flushing money down the toilet.
But we've had the big Wrestle 1 guys kind of land
right
somewhere, with the exception of Shuji Kondo, and he was, confirmed at this point to work for Dragon Gate in what would have been May and June. It has to be him. It's just happening a month later. And for him to be thrown into the mix in what is seemingly, if he's put in these matches, I would assume it's at least on a semi full-time basis that he'll be in the company. But, Kondo and Speed Muscle versus Eita, Yoshido, and Yo, that sounds exciting. But the next night of Dragon Kid and Kondo versus Ben K and Jason Lee, I mean, that is pumping fresh blood into a promotion that is getting a fresh start. That is the stuff that excites me. That is just a fraction of the goodness on that July 5th KBS Hall show card that we'll be discussing more next week. But yeah, Shuji Kondo, again, I would bet the house on it that he is X. So I'm excited to see him enter the fold, presumably.
Yeah, and if you need any more evidence for this, I will present my case to you. Who is Shuji Kondo's biggest rival in Dragon Gate history?
That would be the man that he almost killed at Kobe World 2004. That would be Dragon Kid.
And who was his pareja back in the day? And that turn was considered one of the bigger turns when he turned on him.
I don't know what pareja means, but I'm assuming it means partner, and I'm assuming you're referring to Masato Yoshino,
who was also in Toryumon 2000 Project, although they were terribly injured and came out later. Naruki Doi.
I was going to say, I think Naruki Doi, but you actually stumped me with that one.
Naruki Doi.
Yes.
Also worth noting some other stuff that I think now we can just peel back curtain a little bit. It seems that, at least from people we've talked to and the sources that we've trust, that Shuji Kondo is someone that, if he appears, expect him to be like an Ultimo-like situation. I think that's fair to say, Case.
Yes.
And he might be someone that'd be very good to have around Kobe, because he was the person who ran the Pro Wrestling Academy for Wrestle 1. And say what you will about the complete lack of success for Wrestle 1, they had a damn good wrestling school.
Yes, and the other thing is, Kondo's 42 years old now, and was a big guy who took a lot of crazy bumps and has worked consistently, since he debuted in 2001, 2002. There's a lot of matches on his resume, so he doesn't need to be anything more than that Ultimo-like guy that I'm sure at some point, if he joins the Toryumon Army, he seems like a red herring, someone that can turn into an RED guy at some point. But him being in the fold, just for the fact that, again, he left Dragon Gate at the end of 2004, and despite, or I guess with the exception of the Gaora anniversary show in 2011, where he and Naruki Doi beat the living shit out of each other, and then his return to the company in 2019, which was shocking when it happened. I mean, his singles match versus Masaki Mochizuki in January of 2019, we thought that might be the peak of the Toryumon reunion they were doing that year. It just so happened that Ultimo came back in July, which we thought was impossible until we started hearing rumors of it, legitimate rumors of it. But Kondo was a guy that was exiled, didn't seem like he was welcome back, didn't really want to come back. But with the regime change that has now been in place for 2 years, it appears that Kondo is going to be able to return to the promotion that gave him his start. And that is very exciting, because there's really 2 or 3 generations of guys that he's never really gotten to wrestle.
Yeah, just proposing this out here, like, it's a bad shame, and it's obvious why I feel like you wouldn't have Shuji Kondo make his big return in empty arena matches. I think like that goes without saying, but just putting out there, here's some singles matches that could happen that would be absolutely insane. Him versus Benkei, insane. Him versus Big R Shimizu, insane. Him versus KZ. Him versus Dragon Dia. If this isn't getting your blood pumping and you're getting excited about Shuji Kondo's impending return to Dragon Gate, I don't know what to tell you. Like, he is one of the most exciting people, I think, like, in Dragon System history, and he's one of the people in Dragon System history that has never been replicated as much as they try to replicate. And to borrow a phrase from a friend of the show, he's family. And it only feels appropriate and it feels nice that family can come back home.
But that will have to wait, as we do have another set of empty arena shows coming up this weekend. I will run down the cards real quick. Mike, you can give any thoughts you have on them afterwards. June 27th from Kobe Lapis Hall, we'll get Kagetora versus Taketo Kamai. We'll get Keisuke Ikuda and Jason Lee versus Kaito Ishida and Yo. And we'll get Ultimo Dragon, Genki Horiguchi, and Ryo Saito versus Yamato, KZ, and Strong Machine J. And then on the 28th of June, it will be Naruki Doi and Genki Horiguchi versus KZ and Jimmy. Wonder who's taking the fall there. It'll be Yamato, UT, and Kota Minoura versus Eita, BB Hulk, and Big R Shimizu. And in the main event, more titles on the line. They open the Triangle Gate Championship match with Ben K, Strong Machine J, and Dragon Dia defending against the Toryumon generation, Masato Yoshino, Don Fuji, and Yosushi Kanda. Mike, what jumps out to you on these shows?
Well, first off, the Triangle Gate match was one that was made at the last Empty Arena Kobe Senbei Hall show. So this is basically them clearing the decks. This is the last title match they had teased, so that will be interesting. I think it's interesting that Strong Machine J is someone that they don't often put in like consecutive shows, especially in this system. Like, he's not someone that they've had out all the time. Having him and 2 main events, even though for what is a main event in an empty arena show, it's just another match. I think that's kind of interesting. I'm stoked to see UT versus Eita. I think that will be really exciting on the 28th. Jimmy, I think it's good that he's getting more ring time in. And then we've kind of talked about that tag match of Okuda and Lee versus Ishida and Hyo a little bit before. But you know which match jumps out at me, Case? You know which match that I've not mentioned yet, but this is a match that I am really interested to see how it goes because I have no idea what it'll be, and that's Kagetora versus Taketo Kamai. I know how
an on-brand Mike Spears match.
Yeah. I mean, if Kobune was involved and it was like Kobune versus, I don't know, Susumu Yokosuka, that would be an on-brand Case Low match. I think I'm fair in saying that. I don't think
that sounds delightful now that you mention it.
But Kagetora versus Taketo Kamai, I think it's going to be really interesting. Kamai, sadly, with like everything here, both Kobune and Kamai, and then the other young guys, Madoka, I'm blanking, Kikuta, and Inoue. Look at me remembering names for once.
I know, the Inoue one impressed me. I was scrambling to pull up that card in case you didn't remember it, but you nailed it.
But like, since these two are the seniors of this current dojo class, you'd expect them to be getting more and more ring time about now. Like, if this was a usual year, so they've missed out on that. So the fact that both of them will have been featured in consecutive weekends is pretty exciting to me. And I'm interested to see Ultimo Dragon versus KZ, something that I always find incredibly fascinating, and I'm stoked about that. What calls out to you about this last weekend of Rainbow Gate?
Well, I agree. The Kagetora versus Kamai match sounds incredibly exciting. I think the other thing that jumps out to me is just that Triangle Gate match. I think, given the results that we correctly predicted for this past weekend, where Shimizu beat Dia, and then Yo and Yoshida beat Benkei, and importantly Kento Kobune, I think the Dragon Gate team of Benkei, Strong Machine J, and Dragon Dia, I think they easily retain, and we get, at some point, the Triangle Gate defense of Benkei, Strong Machine J, and Dragon Dia against Takashi Yoshida, Yo, and Big R Shimizu. I think that is coming down the line. If the Toryumon generation wins that match, I will be shocked. But these are fun-looking shows. There's a lot to like here. And then, as we go ahead, looking ahead, if you need even more excitement, we have the two shows this weekend, the two KBS show halls, the KBS hall shows the next weekend, an Osaka Bodymaker #2 show on July 12th, a Korakuen Hall show on July 15th, and a Kobe Sambo Hall show on July 19th, assuming everything goes well. Kobe World has been postponed. I think that broke right after we finished recording last week, so we didn't get a chance to update it. But Kobe World will happen this year. It just won't happen at the end of July like it was scheduled. But we have shows coming up. We have shows with fans coming up. We have a direction in the company. And like I will continue to say until they prove me wrong, the future is bright in Dragon Gate. And I am so excited for what's to come.
Yeah, it's going to be real exciting. If you're speculating on crowd sizes, we'll get more into this next week. But until I hear differently, I believe that all these venues, even though the ones in Kansai would have different restrictions than the ones that are in the greater Tokyo area, expect about 1/3 for the Kyoto, Osaka, and the Kobe Sambo Hall shows. But yeah, no, there's a lot to look forward to. I like that they found a way to kind of clear the deck with these title matches they had hanging over them. And it's just like exciting, and nothing's more exciting to me. And I'm still reverberating it and just peaking at the idea of Shuji Kondo back in Dragon Gate, and I think that's gonna be really exciting. And then I mean, just like looking at this, like they're top to bottom, it will be a very interesting restart. I would put the chances of, as you said, of the Toryumon Gun team winning and defeating the Dragon Gate Army team at relatively low, but I wouldn't be surprised that they want to have like a gold watch reign of some level on some tag team for Yoshino, but I don't see it happening with Don Fuji and Yasushi Kanda. But it's an exciting thing, and I like how they went from like 2 matches over the weekend to 4 matches to 6 matches and say, hey guys, now over the next basically 2 week, 15 days, we're gonna have 5 shows.
Yeah, no, it's a busy schedule, I think, for a lot of people. They've been, well, maybe not after this week, but for a long time they were craving wrestling with crowds and just missing out on a lot of stuff. And it's coming, and it's going to come quick with New Japan restarting and Noah restarting and Dragon Gate restarting. At least in Japan, things are happening now. And like I said, it won't be what we knew for the longest time, but it is the start of something new, which is very, very exciting.
Right, yeah. I watched, and this is an aside, I watched one of the Stardom matches from last weekend that they had in front of a third capacity in Shinkiba. And other than, like, the one noticeable thing other than, like, oh, the crowd's more empty is it feels pretty much the same. There aren't crowd calls because they're telling people not to yell. But it's nice to have crowds back. And I'm really excited for that to be happening. We'll talk about that more this next week on the next week's episode. But, Case, unless you have anything else, I think we both have some stuff to plug and then get out of here.
Indeed, Mike. We both did some extra audio this week. Do you want to tell the folks what you did with the producer, Andrew Rich?
Absolutely. So 2 years in a row, Andrew Rich has been very nice to ask me onto Music of the Mat. Last year, it was about just the overall Masters of the Dragon System theme collection. This year, we went back to the Masters and we talked about themes such as Benkei, Cyber Kong, and then we talked about like 2 of the most important Gaijin in history, and Ricochet and Pac, their theme music they had. And then we talked about some of the rookies. I mean, we talked about Dragon Dia, and it was a really fun time, and talking about Heian period mythology, Cyber Kong's theme, and the rise of Cyber Kong and how he got into Dragon Gate, and a whole lot more. So check that out. I have tweeted it a bunch, but you could also find them on Twitter at Music of the Mat, and please give it a shot.
Now, I host a music podcast, and I haven't been on Music of the Mat. And if you were asking if that hurts my feelings, well, yes, of course it does.
Why else would you not bring it up?
Have I branded myself as not a theme song guy and someone that doesn't typically care about wrestling theme songs? Yes, I have. That doesn't mean I shouldn't be on the show, Andrew Rich. I am available. But if you want more of me for whatever reason, I did former co-host of Open the Voice Gate, John Carroll. I did their show Wrestling Omakase over this past weekend. We talked some Dragon Gate. We talked some Pro Wrestling Noah. And John made me watch a Keiji Muto versus Nobuhiko Takada match from 1996 that I did not enjoy. But overall, very, very fun show. That is also on the Voices of Wrestling podcast feed, and you can follow that podcast on Twitter at WrestleOmakase and give my episode a listen because it was a very fun show to do. And then, as always, we're on Twitter at Open Voice Gate on Twitter for all of the breaking English news updates you need on Dragon Gate. We are more than happy to serve you as fans re-enter the arena sometime soon.
Yep, and I am at Fujiheya. In case is that underscore in your case as well on Twitter if you want to further follow us as well. You got to talk about the Mochifuji appearance in New Japan, and that's something that's always been a match I found really interesting. So make sure to go check that out.
A match that I'll say it now, a match that had been sitting in my watch later playlist on YouTube for years now. I think literally that match has been in my watch later playlist since 2017. And it's with Masaki Mochizuki, and it's Mochifuji against Jado and Gato. And I had just never seen this match. And then John Carroll asked me to come up with 2 wrestling matches that I wanted to talk about. And I panicked and gave him a match that I had never seen before. And then it turned out that it was a delightful little match.
I mean, given the time, I'd have to expect so. I don't think I've watched that match. I think that's something that I'm going to watch after we're done recording and then listen to the episode as well. But that's going to do it here for this week's update of Open the Voice Gate. We'll be back with you next week with the update there, and then we'll take a deeper look into what they've now called Hopeful Gate as Dragon Gate starts to open up. But until next time, take care, everyone.